I had therapy yesterday, and now my therapist knows about the podcast.
Oh, no. Well, that was your first mistake. I know you're not supposed to lie to your therapist, but you should have probably kept that out.
Well, I had this moment as I could feel it coming out of my mouth. You know, my mouth is working, doing its thing, and my brain is like, put on the brakes, stop, 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 stop. I thought, okay, but wait a minute. I clearly I don't know how therapy works. I was like, maybe she won't Google it or look it up because that would be like an invasion of my privacy as a patient.
Oh my gosh. Lost your whole mind. You just forgot how the internet works. Yeah, so, she's not going to Google it, sure.
Nan, if you're listening, hi. Hello, I hope you're not, but hi. She's from Long Island. I learned that yesterday, so I thought, well, isn't that a funny coincidence? But yeah, she was asking questions because I originally just tried to tiptoe around it, and I said I have a creative endeavor that I have been working on for the last 2 years with a partner, and was just like very generic, like open-ended about it. And then it came up that I didn't actually know you and that you weren't local. So then I had to explain how I knew you. And then I was just like, I'm paying this lady a lot of money to explain some bullshit that I don't even really understand, but here we are. So it was good times. I'm back in therapy.
Okay, no, it's great though. But what I'm curious about, and see, that's where this conversation gets super weird and meta.
Yeah,
because we have to talk about the thing without talking about the thing. But it's also like the thing is a thing. Let's just say the thing is a motherfucking thing. What are we doing?
Yeah.
So, hold on though.
What?
I hope you're not having bad feelings in therapy about the thing.
No.
I was like, because that's kind of reserved for me.
No. No, it was yesterday's conversation was around boundaries, and then it kind of trickled into like my toxic traits as a human being, which are I love I love telling other people what to do and how to take care of themselves. And telling them that it's okay for them to have their weaknesses. You can persevere, but like that's not okay for me. I'm not allowed to have those, and I don't have to go to therapy, and I don't need medication because clearly I have risen above. So we kind of like...
I feel like there's nothing wrong with those feelings. Justin Beck has been asking me since Homecoming has started. Justin Beck has been like, you take your medicine? You take your medication today? And I'm like, I am fine. Okay, right. I am thriving.
You might need medication, but I do not. So we talked a bit about that, and she said, and then when it came out that this was a podcast, and I kind of explained to her like what the premise is, she goes, that's kind of interesting that you say that because I think that you're doing a bit of what you do in real life in this podcast. You're sharing vulnerable moments and you're talking about life experience. And she said, I think that you'll find, and she said, I found this in everybody that I've spoken to over the last, however many years. She's been at this for a while. She said, those moments that feel completely isolating, that feel very terrible or very scary or very difficult, she was like, they're universal experiences. So she said, don't be afraid to show your feelings or to be transparent and open, because I talked about how I've spent like 3/4 of this podcast being kind of guarded. She said, I think you'll find more people will relate to that or understand that and not be judgmental because it's very universal. And I was like, wow, thank you. Thank you for that. So I'm coming into season 5 very refreshed, but also I think we have to welcome in the third guest to the podcast, or the third host, which is the real world, right?
Right. And like, I can't believe we're having this work meeting online right now. No, it's so like it's so hard. I can imagine how hard it was for you to try to explain this to someone without saying the words. Like, the reality is, it makes the most sense to say, listen, I'm working on a creative endeavor with Melissa from the Real World, who I have never met. Do you know what the real world is?
Yeah, I was going to say she
says
probably
yes or
doesn't
no.
know.
But the thing is, you never know who knows. And that's the part that I have been discovering since the first episode has aired,
Yeah.
is you don't know who knows. And then you get overwhelmed by the amount of people who know. So
I'm
like
sure.
at first I went into it like, okay, it's Paramount Plus. Ain't nobody paying $99 a year for that. Ain't nobody gonna see this. That's really how I rationalized it. I was like, no, it's like the cross section of people that'll go and watch that. You gotta be technologically savvy. That already rules out a lot of people. You gotta be in the places where they advertise, which is Instagram and Twitter, which if you're old, you're already out. You don't, you know what I mean? Unless they're advertising on Facebook, and I don't Facebook, yikes.
Facebook, don't knock it. Chris Strong, I'm sure if he's listening to this, he's going, Facebook is an excellent place to market to because you're hitting a huge cross-section of people for very little money. So,
oh, yeah.
I don't want to have that conversation later.
Don't discount it. Facebook is valuable. Okay. I'm just saying if we're gonna like, for me,
right.
Facebook is down. Like Facebook and LinkedIn, no, baby, that's not my zone. I'm a Twitter person, Instagram second, begrudgingly second. Twitter is it. Anyway, so what was I saying?
That way
whatever. The point is, it's hard to explain it. And so I've decided that it's dumb to try not to. It is what it is. Here's what it is.
What it is.
I went on the Real World at the tail end of 1999, 2000. That was a crazy time. It was a crazy shift in pop culture in our country, and because of that, the New Orleans season of a pop culturally relevant, dare I say iconic, TV show, the first of its kind. We're kind of embedded in the minds of people in their 30s and 40s and 50s. That is the truth.
Absolutely.
And that's real. And so then we get to how you and I know each other, and what happens is, when you become a person who's on a reality TV show and you matter to somebody in a weird way because you once said that your roommate was servicing the hose. Listen, it was profound. It's a way that you meet people. And so I think it's important for us to kind of maybe do a montage for people who are just getting here. Yeah. Because it's also stupid to act like people aren't getting here. They're here. Hey, guys.
They're here. Hi.
Hey, what's up? Y'all want to talk about the Real World New Orleans homecoming? I get it. No. So I feel like we have to kind of explain how this came to be and how actually that show brought us together.
Right. Things that maybe didn't feel great for you coming off of that experience in 2000. For all of the things that, you've had to deal with since, in terms of like people recognizing you or always feeling like you're kind of perpetually Melissa from the Real World 99 2000, there's been a lot of good that has transpired. And I would say that this is something good that's transpired from that. So thank you, MTV, for, I don't know, introducing me. I don't know what I'm saying. Hold on.
No, I know what you're saying. I listen, it's a ripple effect. Here's what happened. I was cast on a TV show. People watched that TV show. They knew who I was. And then I went on to start Princess Melissa, which was my blog. So I think that's where we got to start.
That's where we got to start. Okay, so I was a senior in high school, and I obviously watched MTV like a lot of kids with cable did. And I remember distinctly thinking, and I didn't really watch other seasons the way that I watched yours. And I think part of it was because I was too young and it just wasn't interesting to me at that point. So your season hit me at a point where I was getting ready to leave home and go to college. So there was that sense of independence and that sense of adventure. And then, to see people that were around my age doing very cool things, living in a very cool house, having really fun experiences, like it was like fantasy, like how cool. And it kind of, I think, leaned into this. I don't know what's going to happen in college, but I think it might be a little bit like this. So there was that, it hit me at just the right time, I think, developmentally. And I remember watching you and I was like, I could be friends with that lady. I don't know why. I think you were very funny. You were very open.
Oh, no, not that lady. Don't call me that lady. I'm kidding. Go ahead. Continue.
We're going to cut that out.
No, we ain't.
But I thought I could
I'm
be
just
friends
saying
with her.
that lady is now taking on a life of its own. Go ahead.
Hashtag that lady. But I thought we could be friends. And like you do, did I ask Google? Did I ask Jeeves? I don't remember, but I asked somebody on my interwebs there in 2000 and I found your blog. And I really liked it because I liked that behind the scenes look, but also this was like the heyday of like Xanga and LiveJournal, and definitely had my own LiveJournal that I kept. So I was reading a lot of blogs at the time because it was, we didn't have social media really beyond like Friendster. Do you remember Friendster and MySpace?
Yeah.
So this was a way.
And I was not an early. I did not adopt Friendster, and I was touch and go with MySpace because I too, I didn't have my own LiveJournal, but I was up in there. Remember ONTD? Like that was my shit. And this was the time of blogging. So this was the time when you would just
spend hours.
You would get to your desk.
Oh my God.
You would get to your desk and do time theft and read Delisted, Perez Hilton, Pink is the New Blog.
Yep.
I read anything Rich Juzwiak. Yep. I read anything Rich Juzwiak put out.
Yep.
44.typepad. Come on now.
Oh, I mean, this was the time when I found Kelly Oxford. She had a Xanga. She was literally just writing stories about motherhood, and now she's fucking living in Hollywood writing movies. I mean, if there was no social media to connect with people on, so if you wanted that kind of experience and you liked to read and you had free time or time that you were trying to steal from your company, blogs were it. I mean, fuck, who had a blog roll? And you could put all of your favorite blogs into that little blog roll and you could have them updated automatically. It was like social media before there was social media.
Listen, it was a very special time, and I used to just, like Kermit, that Kermit gif of him typing. I used to just log on and be like, this is what I'm going to tell the people today. And like when I was writing was when I felt, this is going to sound corny, but I just felt most free because for me, having been the person on a reality TV show, it was a way for me to be like, oh, no, you gonna catch this nuance.
Yeah.
There's all this other stuff about me that they were not able to show. And I fit in this particular box on that TV show. Mm-hmm. But this is me. This is also me. And I didn't realize at the time that I was establishing voice. You know what I mean? Like, it was a way for me to have the final say and stuff because I'm an Enneagram 1. But like it was a package deal. It was like, here's Melissa from the real world that you know from TV, and these are the pieces and the elements you can get from her through someone else's lens.
Yeah.
And then here's the fuller picture of her in the written word. So at the time that you were reading my blog, I was writing my blog and also creating entirely new ripples and parasocial relationships, including one with you. You know what I mean? Like, I was your friend in your head,
Yeah.
but like my readers were my friends in my head. It was a weird time. It was a weird time. It's hard to explain it.
It's hard to describe to people that like weren't there in it, because it was also a time where meeting people on the internet was considered creepy or weird. Like, I remember my first boss out of college, and this was in 2004, was like ashamed to say that she had met her boyfriend, who turned into her fiance, on a dating website. Like, that wasn't like, Tinder wasn't like the thing that it is. It was like Match.com, and people were like closeted about it because it felt weird or creepy to say that you met your boyfriend online or girlfriend or whatever.
Right. No, and nowadays, you know, who doesn't meet online?
Right. So it was reading your blog, and I wasn't like, I would say that I read it pretty consistently. And then from there, like once I graduated and I, got busy with work and kind of moving into those next phases, I would check back in. I would probably go back in like once a month and just check to see what you're doing, because you were also living a really much more exciting life than I was living as a 20-something in, buttfuck Ohio at the time. So it was interesting to hear about your time in California, and then you would talk about your relationships. And at the time I was dating Chris, and then when you were with Justin and you were talking about like, being the housewife on Long Island, it was just 180 degrees different than the life that I was experiencing. So there was also that part of like getting to be a fly on the wall for somebody else's life experience. I mean, that's why we all like reality TV. That's why we all like social media, is that you can kind of lurk and get to know about somebody else that you're interested in. So, and then we've talked about this, a couple other times in the show, but I was super young when I got married, and I didn't have any friends that were going through the same life stages. And you and I seemed to like hit those within a year of each other. So then having somebody that I already felt connected to doing the same things that I was doing, it was comforting, because sometimes you feel alone, or am I doing this right? Or, especially when it came to like getting pregnant and having kids. I remember when you miscarried, and then I miscarried like my first pregnancy before Quinn. And so there were these like weird connections that just made me feel like a little less like weird or like floating on an island. Like, there are other people obviously going through this, and now I have somebody's firsthand experience to understand what it was like for them. And then that kind of in turn allowed me to process some of the things that I was going through.
Wow. I mean, we've talked about it, but it's still heavy to hear. Like, wow, okay. And like, what do I, and that's like, what do I say? Thank you? No. Melissa, she's not, that's not what she's saying, but is that what she's saying? So you see what I'm saying? Anyway,
it was helpful. And maybe what felt like an exercise in like telling your story, or what felt like an exercise in like navel gazing sometimes, or just writing to write because it felt good to get it out. I think that sometimes, or maybe what you didn't realize when you started that blog was the impact that you would have on other people that you would never even knew, and the positive things that it could do for somebody through your writing, and whether they connected with you later or they connected with you during that time. I think that, you shouldn't discount the line that you threw a lot of us through the things that you were writing.
Wow, thanks, Amanda.
Feelings. Feelings corner.
Put in the feeling slack. Yes, which brings us to
2019.
So now you've started a podcast. It's called Your Mom Has a Podcast.
Yep.
And you're looking for guests.
Yeah.
And something in your brain goes, I'm going to call that Melissa lady.
I don't know.
Which is crazy.
I mean, I had really only interviewed people that I knew, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to make a podcast. But my dad gave me enough confidence to believe that it was something that I that I could do. So I just
old Jim.
started, I know, good old Jim. So I just started reaching out to people in my inner circle and saying, hey, I have this idea. I want to have these conversations. Do you want to come sit in my sunroom for an hour? I'll make you a cup of coffee and you just tell me whatever it is. And it satisfied a couple needs. It satisfied a need to be creative and get instant gratification to release a creative project. It also allowed me to have deep conversations with people. I hate chit chat and I hate superficial conversations, and I don't make friends easily. So it allowed me to talk to people that I was comfortable with and already knew on some level. And then they told me the juicy stuff. I wanted to hear the difficult stories about parenting or pregnancy or childbirth. So it satisfied a lot of needs. And I don't even remember how I got the nerve, the audacity, the caucasity to DM you, and I think I said, you have no idea who I am. And we had like DM'd a couple times back and forth, but I didn't even know if you remembered those like interactions. But I was like, I am literally nobody. I have a podcast that no one listens to except for like the 10 people in my life. Do you want to be on it? And you were like, yes. And I was like, wait, what?
No,
real?
and the crazy part about it is, up to that point, like in 2019, I had been on year, I don't know, I had been on maybe year 10 of my hibernation.
Yeah.
You know, I locked down after I had that baby. After I had my first baby, I was like, you know what? I got to focus on my kids. There's nobody got time to be on the internet.
Yeah.
And so I've had locked social media all this time.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's a deep cut. You got to really be like, I'm going to find that Melissa from the real world and see if I can follow her Instagram. Like, you got to really have remembered and valued Princess Melissa to go there. And
Yeah.
If you did, we probably interacted in a weird way via Princess Melissa or through my Hotmail.
Oh, I definitely hotmailed you one time.
No, that Hotmail inbox is a treasure trove of just, not even kidding, like beautiful relationships where, like, I've told you this before. I have people that I wrote back, and then we just had a writing relationship, and then, you know, one day exchanged phone numbers because it was like, girl, I can't write all this. Let me just call you. You know, and that's how it works. You know, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, Melissa from the real world, who has now become Melissa, a real person, is in your inbox, but also in your blue bubbles, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Because I too am like, what the fuck's going on? And I have a hard time explaining it. Justin will be like, who? And I'll be like, you know, Matt, he got the light red hair.
Yeah.
He worked at Old Navy. And Justin's like, I don't know who that is. I was like, oh my God, you don't know who that is because I've been talking to this person online for 20 years. Jesus Christ. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's like, and like, you can't, in the same way that people who met on Tinder in year 2000 were embarrassed about that. It's that where my husband's like, what do you mean you're talking to people on the internet? And I'm like, I'm not talking to people on the internet. It's not strangers, really. I mean, I know where he lived, kind of. Right. You know? I mean, it's not a catfish. I seen a picture. So, like, I think that what happened, I don't know. You know what? I think astrologically.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, remember Andy said.
Yeah, I think what happened is, what really piqued my interest is you said, no one listens to this. I am nobody, but also I got a Filipino half-brother. I was like, boom, she's in. That's really, truly, I know that sounds so dumb, but it was just like, she got to feel, and I did the calculus. I was like, okay, is this woman a safe space? Let me just browse her internets, and see, and you have to understand, up to this point, I had been invited to go on many podcasts. When the read first came out, they're like, Melissa, come through, and I was like, Melissa's hiding. Sorry, I don't leave my house, which I've always felt really bad about. I'm going to be on the read next week, by the way. Hey. I've always felt really bad about, because oddly enough, Crystal and I have had a parasocial relationship for years and years on Twitter before she became, you know, this
Crystal with a
beautiful,
capital
amazing,
C.
yes, this beautiful, amazing person who's putting her written word and her spoken word out into the world. So it's just like, I don't know. It's hard to explain to people. Anyway, the point is, when you had come to me about, do you want to do this podcast? And I'm not even kidding you. I read it. I sat there. I looked at it. I browsed your shit. And I was like, yeah, she seems harmless. And then I reviewed our previous, conversations. And I know that there was a Filipino thing in there. And I was like,
yeah.
And I said, okay, sure. And you were like, what? And I was like, I don't really do podcasts, but sure. Not knowing that was going to open a door. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
I feel like both of us didn't know that we
blew
were
that
walking
shit
through
wide
a door.
open.
But it wasn't even like a calculated, ooh, I'm going to make a podcast. I'm going to get on iHeartRadio. I'm going to have ads from Geico. It wasn't even like that. It was just, I'm going to have a meaningful conversation with this person. I'm going to put that meaningful conversation out into the world, and we'll see what happens. Nothing could happen. Or somebody out there listening is going to be like, yes, my nipples hurt so bad the first time I breastfed. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
And that's important to me. And at that time, I was just like, I don't know. 2019, I was just like, I've been in hibernation for so long. And it wasn't even, I hadn't planned on coming out. You know what I mean? It was just like, if someone in the random World Wide Web, as big as it was, Googled, what the hell happened to Melissa from the Real World? And your mom has a podcast, came up on page 4. Man, I was happy for that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I was so surprised, and I remember feeling so excited and so happy because I thought, I've experienced this person through their writing, and then obviously through the television show, and then, in the drips and drabs on Instagram. And now I really get an opportunity to like talk to them and ask questions, and it felt like being able to share the things, because we specifically spoke about motherhood, and then we talked a bit about the real world, but I was able to then kind of like turn around and like share the things that like had mattered to me or felt important to me with the 5 other people that listened to my show. So for me, it kind of felt like a very full circle moment. And what I didn't expect is that Melissa from the Real World was now going to be texting in my phone, and that all of a sudden we would find ourselves going, you want to make a podcast about about motherhood?
And that's the thing, is I was like, I think it just felt like, at the same time that it was like a wholesome, neat conversation to have, and it felt good, and I could tuck it away, whatever. It also did feel like, that was kind of a creative, interesting thing. I've never done that before, because podcasting is not a thing. I don't. You're the one that listens to podcasts. I don't be listening to. I don't listen to no podcast. What you mean? I'm like a reader,
Yeah.
And I'm a watcher. So a listener, like the only podcast that I had listened to up to that point was Serial. Hashtag free Adnan. I was like, did I not kill that lady? So like I wasn't as tuned in to the connection of podcast, because I was still on my reading people's words thing. You know what I mean? Like I was stuck in that live journal, Tumblr, Substack world. And so you were just on another level. So again, another weird way that we could connect, and I could learn something from you where you had learned a lot of other things from me. So our relationship was starting off kind of one-sided, where you knew a lot about me, but then throughout the course of that one conversation, and then the many conversations afterward, where you could probably tell I was getting creatively controlling. Sorry. When And I was like, yo, on the podcast, you going to take that part out? What about this part here? How about if we did this? How about you flip the conversation and do it like that? And you were like, but it's kind of my podcast. I was like, right, true. But throughout the course of those conversations about, you know, motherhood, we were also having a creative conversation about putting out work in the world.
Yeah.
Which led us to this.
Right.
Which didn't happen immediately. That's the part people don't understand. Like, Kelly and I were just on Kate Casey. Kate Casey, you're familiar with. She's just a really excellent interviewer and just like, super thoughtful.
Fantastic.
And, you know, like super thoughtful and like on her mom shit, but also on her pop culture shit. So like she also, you know, dots a lot of I's and crosses a lot of T's for me.
Yeah.
You know, she's a what do you call that? What do you call people? She's a connector. She's
Oh
a
my gosh.
connector.
Yes.
She was born to connect people. Anyway, Casey just had me and Kelly on the show. We were doing press and promo for Homecoming, but also just having a conversation with a person that we've grown to know and like.
Mm-hmm.
So it was different, kind of. Anyway, you know, because Kelly and I had been having super therapeutic, restorative conversations. Because remember, too, I hadn't been in touch with Kelly for a really long time. And then when Kelly and I really started talking, we didn't talk about real world. We don't talk about real world. Kelly actually bust into song.
I heard that. It was so cute.
And she said, the thing about Melissa is she's a slow burn. You know, like you could feel like you love her and you could tell her that, and then she'd be like, oh, okay. And so you
like
and
what just
I
happened like a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. You and I had a slow burn, you know,
Yeah.
like after we had like a conversation about maybe this is a podcast, maybe it's a podcast about motherhood, and we were really trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel like I was avoiding you because I wasn't ready to fully jump into that.
Yeah.
But also I was like, do we have mojo though? Like, do we have, like we had a great conversation, but can we have further great conversations?
Mm-hmm.
And do we further want to get to know each other? Like, my thing was, is she trying to get to know Melissa from the real world? Or is she trying to get to know Melissa Beck, who lives on Long Island and has hella kids?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's see if we have a connective tissue to work with. So I'm going to say, you know, it took us 5-6 months to like work that out until the one day that I was just like, fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah.
So everything basically happens in its own time. It's not like we were forcing this creative thing, but then it happened. And so I think, I mean, thank you, Amanda, because when I said yes to your podcast, it was under the guise that no one's going to listen. She said nobody's going to listen. And that felt safe. But that felt safe. It felt safe for me because, you know, I was tiptoeing out into the world. And now we're going to get to the part where now the podcast, we finished, I think we finished one season. And it was like, wow, that was really fun.
Yeah.
We did it. 12 people are here. Wow.
Well, you know, when I prefaced my message with nobody will listen to this, I was mostly doing it because I thought, well, I don't want her to have some false pretense like this is actually a thing, and that, you know, if she's looking to like get her voice out there, I want her to know that like nobody's going to hear this. Not realizing.
And when you said that, yeah, you didn't realize that's what she wants.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when you were talking about the slow burn that came up yesterday in therapy, and I was explaining to her that this whole process has been a huge lesson for me in patience and in pulling back that very toxic trait that I have to like drive a project really hard. And I said, it's been really, it's been a huge growth for me to be able to like work in something with someone and not just like force my hand and take the reins and like take it all over, and really have to, you know, have a true partnership. And she was like, well, look, she was like, your co-host, your partner has like taught you something. And I was like, yes, absolutely. I said, because we literally every week made an episode for 6 whole months. And I just had to sit on my hands and be like, okay, so we're going to talk again next week. Okay,
And
we're going
I'm
to do
like,
this again
maybe.
next week.
I don't know. I don't know how I felt about that one. And listen, I felt bad in that. I did. I was like, okay, she is having an expectation that we are going to meet every week. We are going to have a schedule. We are going to do this and we're going to do that. But I am not creatively ready to put that out into the world. And I have learned so much from Justin Beck Glassjaw.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain this to you. I was like, I want to make art for art's sake. If it gets consumed and they like it, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, is that art? No. I was
Yeah.
saying,
You're like doing it for like the creative like exercise. And if people like it, they like it, but you weren't interested in like making it a thing.
right. So if you consumed it and you liked it, man, cool. And I also was really hardcore on organic growth.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's where we had hit a little bump in the road when it came to time to like promote it. And I was like, nah, word of mouth is good. And you were like, okay, but we can buy ad space on this. I'm like, nah, that's not necessary. And so now we get into me having a conversation with you, which was hard. It was a hard conversation about how not to leverage real world, which
Yeah.
is so, it doesn't make sense to a person who's looking at the outside in. They would go, oh yeah, common sense, real world, promote the shit out of that. That's where people know you from. Why don't you appreciate that? Why would you run away from that? Well, because it has a whole set of emotional baggage that a person who was not on that show could never understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to explain it to you, I was nervous that I was going to push you away, because there was also a very real fear that you would be like, okay, you're not that famous. It's really not that serious. If we say you're on Real World, it's not that big of a deal. But like the people that I interact with in real life, in my real time space,
Yeah.
it's not a thing. So I was like, if you and I are going to forge a dynamic, I get to be in control of what we do in terms of using Real World as a way to promote this show.
Mm-hmm.
And by show, I mean podcast. And I remember that conversation being kind of uncomfortable. Because it's just hard to explain why I would have a complicated relationship with that when I wasn't even like, nobody's yelling at me on the street when fuck Melissa from the Real World. It wasn't like like you got to be a real whole ass weirdo to be like, man, fuck you, Melissa. Like, what I do? That shit was 20 years ago. What the fuck I did?
Right.
So it wasn't that, and like, as a person who was on that show, it's hard to explain that, and that's why I think Kelly and I are really vibing, because she gets it so fully and so wholeheartedly, and she also has her own community from who she is in her day to day, not who she was on Real World. So like,
Right.
we've been able to vibe on that level, you know. But trying to explain that to someone who knows you from your time on the show, who knows you from the Real World, and now you're trying to get to know them through a weekly conversation on a podcast that would probably benefit from you know, MTV's multi-million-dollar arm of marketing. And then saying, no, we're not gonna do that. I know you and your husband were sitting there like, yo, this girl's crazy. She does not want to say she's on the Real World, but she's on the Real World though, and that's how I know her from the Real World.
Yeah, I think didn't it come up when we were talking about how to write the Facebook ad?
Yes,
and Chris
'cause
was like,
we were hand wringing about that Facebook ad for 2 months,
a long time.
and finally I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess we could say it, but that's kind of not the draw. But I get it. And the thing is, I understood where y'all were coming from, But I also was like, I don't want that to be the reason why they come. If it is, that's cool. But I would like them to come for true and real conversations between two women who happen to have had kids.
Yeah.
You know, and then on top of that, this podcast isn't even necessarily about kids and about motherhood. This podcast is the exploration of a parasocial relationship that has been in play for 20 years. That's only coming to fruition in the past 2 years. And in those 2 years, I would hope that I have become somebody outside of just Melissa from the real world, which I imagine was hard for you to try to explain to your therapist.
Yeah. It's hard. I try not to explain it as often as possible. My dad and I were having a conversation about it a few weeks back, and I was explaining how the show was getting ready to air and some of the things that were happening around it. And of course, my dad has no reference for it because I don't think he's ever watched an episode of Real World in his entire life. And he was like, so this is like a thing people watch? This is like an important like TV show? And I was like, yeah, I mean, and so I think there's only a very small niche group that you can really just give like the very bare basic details and they'll get it. Like if I have to get any deeper into the conversation, I just abort because it's too strange.
Yeah, because oh, I have a podcast. Oh, really? What is it? It's too strange. Oh, you don't know the lady? Because that's already weird. Wait, you haven't met?
You've never met?
No, we've never met. Oh, well, then how did you guys? Oh, well, she was a guest on my podcast. Well, why was she a guest on your podcast? Well, she was on this reality show. Oh, so you have met? No, I know her kinda. And like, imagine my end of it explaining it. Okay, so you've never met? No, she had followed me on Instagram. What? Like,
I feel the weirdest explaining it because I'm like, yeah, I like watched her on TV, then I read her blog, then I followed her on Instagram. And like, I felt like we could be friends. Like I sound like single white female to the core. It gives me like very weird feelings. So we just...
No, I'm glad you said that because there were times that we were talking in the 5 months before we launched where I was like, yo, is this single white female right quick?
She's going to cut her hair into that weird pixie wedge.
And I was like, Amanda, you just bought Timberland boots. Like,
I was trying something.
I was like, oh no, is this safe space? Did I miscalculate? No, and I didn't. And so that brings us, full circle to this is safe space, and the podcast has been safe space, and I feel like we've created a cute little community of people that specifically get this thing, and that is a small group of people that specifically get this thing. And so that is to say, welcome. If you just got to this podcast because you're interested in Melissa from the Real World New Orleans, this podcast is not really about that. However, that does shape my day-to-day life right now in these next 8 weeks. So Amanda here is a person that I've been getting to know for the past 2 years who understands my relationship with that show. I mean, Amanda, you were there when I got the first call.
Oh. Nerve-wracking.
And you were like, oh, fuck, what are we going to do now? She's going to go crazy. She's going to hibernate again.
I was so worried. Oh my God. And then like when you went away in November, I was like, do not text her. I'm just going to let her be because I do not know what is happening. But then I also needed to know what was happening. But I was like, don't bother her. She's got lots of shit going on. Very concerned. And then waiting for this to air, I was like, oh my God.
But here's the thing though. And that's another part we can talk about is I think with Homecoming, we're all adults here now, and we had all experienced the first time, when we were living unapologetically. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. I think that I think that some of the trepidation came from understanding reality TV in 2000 is 100% different than reality TV in 2022, like you said. And so we understand that what we see on Housewives, what we see on Summer House or whatever is not actual reality. It is massaged and manufactured in some ways.
Yes, and it's the reality that's presented within that absurd box.
Yes. So where you were interested in like, this is who I am now, and like, let's do like a little fun comparison of like the growth that I've made, the changes that have happened in my life from, you know, season 9 Melissa to today. Yes, I welcome that. Let's explore that, and like, let's get to see how everybody else has grown and changed, not manufacture some bullshit so that I go home and you've cut, you know, a whole 30-minute conversation into 5 minutes, and now I look like a fucking crazy person when that's not who I am.
Yes. Yes. And so the hand wringing that I had to make that decision, it really boiled down to, you know, trusting the process, but also showing up and being my truest, authentic self. And if my authentic self was having feelings about the process itself, I'm gonna break this fourth wall and tell you motherfuckers I'm having feelings about the process itself. Ultimately, you know, now having seen the first episode, and I'm talking about watching frame by frame and putting my producer brain on and understanding what I'm looking at, I think that the show is going to be an authentic representation of exactly what happened in those 2 weeks. And that's all you can ask for. You know what I'm saying? That's all you can ask for, is for a non-manipulated, true storytelling of each person that arrived in that house as they were at that time. And then also, you know, after 8 weeks, it's over. So, you know, now I'm back in here. I'm doing my little podcast. Girl, I got dishes to do. I got, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like I was taking that and and trying to make it another thing, because it's still a pandemic. I'm up in here. I'm not, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I also, you know, this little podcast been on the tracks. Like, this is, I came back and it was time for us to hunker down and do our work again. So I guess that's going to be it's going to be hard to explain to people. It is.
It is. And you know what's really weird is I watched on Wednesday, like while everybody was gone, I like wanted to have a chance to sit down by myself and watch it on Wednesday. And I was trying to think of like, how would I watch this if the last 2 years didn't happen versus how I'm watching it now. I don't know how to explain this, but like seeing you in that environment, it's like, yeah, that's Melissa. Like your mannerisms, the things that you do with your hands.
You know me.
It's so weird.
You're seeing a person you know on TV versus a person you got to know on TV 20 years ago. So it is weird. And I've had my friends in real life, people in my real life are like, yo, it's wild. Like, it's you. You know? It's you on TV.
Yes.
Yes. Because you actually know me. You're like, yup. That's exactly what Melissa would have said at that shit. Yup.
Yes.
There she goes.
Yes.
Like you.
I just thought it would be nice to kind of like refresh before I get into this new season, and I couldn't do it. It felt so strange. I made it like three episodes in, and you were having moments of like big feelings, figuring something out, and I had to turn it off. And I wasn't expecting that because I thought this is going to be a fun trip down memory lane. Oh my God, I haven't seen this in 20 years. I'm sure there's a lot of things that I've forgotten. And
well, JJ explained it to me like this. He said it felt like I was violating you as a person. He said it felt like I was reading your diary at the time when I didn't know you personally. And he was like, and it felt wrong because I know you now and I love you now for who you are. And he's like, and don't take this the wrong way. You were awesome on that show. I watched that show. I loved you. He's like, I'm a gay guy. I loved you.
Yeah.
He was like, but I know you. And it felt weird. And I was like, I get that.
Felt very weird. Mm-hmm. It's shifted. Who you are to me has shifted in these last 2 years. And where you started out as kind of maybe feeling novel. Oh my God, I get to talk to Melissa from the real world. It's now that this is just Melissa. I mean, my kids. Who's texting you, Melissa? you're just like, Melissa. I don't know how to explain it. There's this weird shift, and so it just feels very strange.
No, I get
it's
it.
like my brain just can't handle it.
Yeah. Listen, you and I have seen each other in, with serums on our faces and house dresses. I've seen you with your sweaty fucking Fire Marshal Bill ponytail to the side. Like, we know each other.
Yeah.
Even though we never met. Oh my God, we're crazy. We're crazy. We're all the way crazy. But I mean, it's just the power of. It just speaks to the power of that show in terms of impact, which has been overwhelming for me in the past couple days since the first episode aired. On top of navigating the space that I have with my real people who are, proud of me and excited for me to be back out into the world. Because there's also that piece of it, where like JJ and Lisa, they're like, dude, Melissa, you're fucking talented. My friend Maria is like, what the fuck? Go do something with this. And I'm like, yeah, but not really. And it's hard to hear. It's been a very great lesson in taking compliments, which has always been hard for me.
Yeah.
And also in, being outside and accepting that I belong to people in the world. And I think what's happening on this podcast is we're having real conversations between, like, we're getting to know each other, and we will know each other, and we'll meet and ruin the premise of the show one day.
I know. I always wonder. There's like, I think that there's a majority that are like, when are you guys going to meet? And can we be a part of it? And another part that's like, yeah, but that ruins the whole premise of the show. I think it just evolves, right? Because when do you ever stop knowing someone?
Right. Does Justin know everything about me? Yes. He's seen my prolapsed butthole, so I'm pretty sure he knows everything about me.
Oh, God.
Remember that? Justin, do you remember that entry on Princess Melissa?
Is my asshole outside my body, I think is what you asked.
Yeah. And he was like, yup.
I remember reading that. Oh my God, Shalom's birth story. And I remember thinking,
why would I
holy
put that on the
shit.
internet?
Is Oprah black? I think that was also a line from that entry. You were talking about the nurse being on the curly Q phone cord with her girlfriend, talking about your skin, maybe?
Yes, it was true. Listen, that was a great entry. I'm gonna have to unearth that. Anyway, I'm glad we've had a long rambling conversation so we can establish like what it is for the people who are new. So if you're new here, welcome.
We're happy you're here.
This is Imperfect Strangers. This is Amanda, a woman from Ohio who I have been getting to know for the past 2 years. And I'm Melissa, a woman who Amanda has known-ish for 20 years, but she's been getting to know for the past 2 years. And the podcast is called Imperfect Strangers. Probably by season 10, we're going to have to change it and literally sue Friends. And tell them we want to change the name of the podcast to Friends, so I don't know what you're going to do with your little franchise.
Yeah, and I think that setting the expectation that this is, if you're new here, this is a safe space, and our block hand is strong. So don't come up here with any bullshit. This is light and love. This is, glitter and crystals.
Yeah, we're Kelly Wolf flowing over here, okay?
Yes, we are.
This is flow, bitch.
Sweet-a-ba-dee-ba-doo-da.
Sweet-a-boo-dee-da-boo-dee.
This is...
He really, truly has a beautiful voice. He does.
Oh, my God.
He can sing. Tokyo can blow,
sing.
bitch.
Yeah.
Tokyo can blow. You know that Tokyo and Justin Beck
I
have
saw that
intentions.
picture. That was so cute.
It was so cute. So Tokyo's so sweet. So Justin came. I'm not gonna say when he came because I don't know how the show is gonna be cut. But he wasn't on camera, so don't. Victor, sit down, calm down. You're not gonna see your man on TV. He came and just to be my solace and my peace and my rock at the end of that 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But also I had a lot of luggage and I needed help. Dude, I just have to say this. MTV gave us, or Paramount, whomever the fuck, gave us Herschel luggage. But they gave it to us upon arrival at the quarantine hotel. And I'm like, bitch, I packed a Louis Vuitton. I'm not walking in there with that. I mean, Herschel's great. Thank you, Herschel. Yeah. But this is national television. And I also was like, are you guys dumb? You're going to have 7 of us walk in with all 3 of us haven't seen each other in 22 years, but we happen to have 3 matching pieces of black luggage. Are y'all stupid? And also, how am I going to get all this home? You shipping that home?
Right.
But I also had a weighted blanket. I had my bedding that I had to get here. So it was great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But so Justin came, and what was really awesome about Justin coming was he got to, because he didn't really understand it either. And that's another part that's hard to explain to people. My husband did not watch Real World. He doesn't know me from that. He knew of me from that, but he knows me, his wife, for the past 18 years that we've been together, however long we've been together. He knows me for real, though,
Yeah.
And he hadn't revisited and watching those clips. And look, I didn't want him watching that shit. A, I was uglier. But, and B, your husband don't want to see you flirting with motherfuckers on TV.
Right.
So like there's another whole weird, and it happened 50 billion years ago, and it wasn't a real thing. It was a flirtatious, fun relationship that I had with Jamie, but you don't want to be disrespecting your husband and shit. Anyway,
right.
He came, and it was really nice because he got to meet everybody. He was sitting up there. We were all sharing a hummus tray while I'm in makeup. And he got to walk around the house and see how the cameras were rigged. And he was just, like, fascinated, but also like, babe, what have we done? He was like, because I think a part of him didn't fully get the scope of Real World and the reach, because he was like, I thought it was like 6 people with a couple cameras following you. He's like, I didn't know. Like, we went into the house across the street, which was the production house. It had all the monitors and this and that, and then there was the Batcave in the actual house that had all the TVs, and and that it was like a 100 person crew. I don't know how many it was, but it was a lot of crew. He was like, oh, this is a real TV show. I was like, babe, which part? What are you talking about? I was like, we're on Paramount Plus. They're playing Halo, bitch. They got real movies and shit. Paramount. The mountain, and then the stars go around. It's a real network. And he was like, I know, I got it, but I didn't get it. And he was like, and then you have to remember now, Justin Beck is sharing me with the world, because remember, he was all gung-ho about the podcast. He's always been supportive. He was like, I love this. This is a creative endeavor for you. I'm so happy you have something to pour your craziness into. Do that. And every day he was like, listen, I'm on Amanda's side. You guys, you got to put it out there. You got to put ads out. And I was like, don't be on Amanda's side with that. And then this thing came out, and like we had to have serious conversations about what it meant for me to A, leave the kids for that long. I never had.
Yeah.
And B, jump back down into this, because remember too, my in-laws have never seen me on the damn Real World.
Mm-hmm.
My Hebrew teacher ain't never seen me on no damn Real World. You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit is crazy. And I was young. I'm pretty sure you, Amanda, do not want any moving video of anything you did when you were 19, 20, 21.
Oh my God. I say all the time, I'm so thankful that none of that shit existed when I was that age, because who wants to I was having a conversation a few months back with somebody about, your time on the Real World and coming back. And I was like, you have to realize that you would not want somebody rehashing shit that you did very publicly 20 years ago and talking to you about it all the time. I was like,
Yes.
You have to put yourself in those shoes and understand what that must feel like for these guys, because, you know, we grew up in a time where, like, if it didn't get caught on a film camera and then taken to Meyer and got developed in 7 days and then you had actual proof, nobody knew that you did that crazy shit.
Correct. That parrot was never on your shoulder, bitch, in Jamaica. It wasn't.
You
'Cause
never
don't have
put
the picture
dollar
to prove
bills
it.
on your nipples and danced around in a bar.
Okay, Amanda, we gonna cut that. Why you brought up that?
Because I did crazy shit, and if my parents had photographic or video proof of it, I would have been in trouble.
Right. So anyway, welcome to Imperfect Strangers. We hope you like the show.
And if you don't, well, that's on you.
I mean, if you don't, good luck. There's other stuff out there for you. But this is, again, like she said, safe space. We be having fun
Yeah.
up in here. We be cutting up. And sometimes we have serious conversation. Anyway, if you're 30 to 40, you got kids or you don't got kids, and you just like eavesdropping, this is for you. This is for you. And if it's not for you, that's okay too.
Yeah,
So-
we're totally fine with that.
Correct.
And if you like us, you could leave us 5 stars in Apple Podcasts.
Okay, see, that's Amanda's job. I always make it Amanda's job to be asking for shit. Amanda be like,
Yeah.
"Did you hear about a Patreon?" I'd be like, "You tell him that shit. I'm not saying that."
Patreon is where it's at, I'm telling you.
Yes. So take them out, Amanda. Cue up the music.
Well, thank you. Look at you here at the very end of the episode. I love this for you, and I love this for us, because now you're going to get to hear all of the important things that stranger friends who didn't make it here to the end are going to miss out on. And first of all, first is a stranger shout out. So in the last 30 days, we have picked up some new stranger friends, and we're jumping right back in with those patron shout outs. So huge thank you to our new patrons, Tammy H., Amanda S., Savannah J., Brian N., Ronnie M., Alia, Jeremy G., and Amy M. Thank you guys for supporting the show, and thank you to all of our patrons. If you are looking for bonus content, access to close friends, and our private Discord chat server, you can check us out at Imperfect Strangers. Just kidding. You can check. You would think that after doing this for as long as we have, I would have this memorized. I don't. So let's try this again. You can check us out at patreon.com/imperfect strangers. There's also a link in our Instagram bio. So if you're not following us on Instagram, what are you even doing with your life? Get there. That's where all of our important information is, because we are old and that is our preferred social media outlet. At Imperfect Strangers _podcast. We be tweeting. That was my Melissa, because she's the Twitter person. So we are tweeting over on the Twitter. What's even happening right now? At Imperf Strangers. We have a website, imperfectstrangerspodcast.com. What else do we have? We have a TikTok, but we don't use it. Again, #old. I think that's it, guys and gals and friends beyond the binary. That's it. So thank you. Say hi. Drop us reviews, ratings in Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends. Remember, this is a safe space. This is a positive space, love and light. So with that, goodbye.